walks with me and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with him, though the night around me be falling, but he bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and he walks with me and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. That was 595. Our next one is not too far from here, 589. What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have blessed peace with my Lord so near, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. Sweet. All right, let's open up our Bibles. We are in Deuteronomy 28. Do you have the microphone? We should be 28. Really? Oops. We're restudying, maybe looking at it from a different perspective. We didn't get to the curses. All I prepared for was 1 through 14. I thought we were halfway through 27, that's why. Okay, let me see. Let me open up my Bible. Hold on, I misclicked something here. So you guys got through 1 through 14? Okay. We get to read one of my favorite words that whenever I'm teaching children, I always make a note that one of my favorite words in the Bible is but. They find it very hilarious. But it's a good pivot point. It's very important that we read those pivots. Can someone catch us up, give us a little review of what happened 1 through 14 so we can have a good split dichotomy?
Summary of 1 through 14 was follow all the rules and you'll be blessed.
Is that really basically it?
Yeah.
Basically. Well, let's see what happens in the opposite. Can I get a reader? This is a really long section, so. We'll take this paragraph by paragraph. We'll do 15 through 19.
Yeah, it does tend to repeat itself a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord your God, or be careful to do all of his commandments and his statutes that I command you today, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Cursed shall you be in the city, and cursed shall you be in the field. Cursed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Cursed shall be the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground, the increase of your herds and the young of your flock. Cursed shall you be when you come in, and cursed shall you be when you go out.
Sounds pretty familiar.
A mirror
Yes.
of...
It is basically the opposite of what we're looking at. And that's basically what the whole of this section is. Would anyone like to take I don't know, just an idea of why there would be more curses maybe than blessings?
I'm sure to convince us, right? The stick is always bigger than the carrot, right? The carrot in this case being follow the rules and you'll be blessed. But dare to not follow the rules, and let me tell you all the ways you're going to be cursed. And then it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Would anyone like to share, this might be embarrassing, would anyone like to share a time where you've had to learn something the hard way? I have plenty of those stories, so if anyone raises their hand, I can give one. I'm young, but I have a lot of those stories. Okay. So, well, wait, I don't need this. So when I was growing up, I was a very quiet kid. Didn't take too well to making friends right away, but eventually I did make friends in about 3rd grade. So it took me a few years to figure that one out. Otherwise, I had plenty of siblings at home and cousins. So right around then, I started getting into more trouble, right? More friends means more options for things you can do. Just neighborhood kids. I wouldn't say they were bad kids. And so I would be out later than usual, and so my parents were pretty good about figuring out where I was eventually. But years go by, and I get into a bad habit of getting home late. And my parents have not disciplined me physically up until this point. Yes, they'll put it that way. I was, well, maybe once or twice when I was like 4 or 5. That's about it. So when they came to figuring out how to punish me and how to make me learn, they came up with a scheme and they would give me a haircut. Haircut. So every time from 5th grade on until, just about 18, I would get a haircut every time I got really in trouble. And I liked my hair. It was long. And so every time I would get a haircut, several things would happen. I would see the nice lady that I would eventually become friends with. That would be the rest of my day. And the next Monday at school, all my friends would ask, "What did you do?" So I always had some kind of story to tell whenever my hair got cut. But that worked. It really only happened 5 times from 5th grade to 12th grade. It was different things, and it worked. I really tried getting out of trouble like that. Yeah.
It's interesting that you should choose that story because we always give you a hard time
Oh yeah.
when you get here. But in particular, chapter 28 of Deuteronomy it's almost as if the blessing winds up being the absence of this plethora of curses. So if you read from 15 almost to the end, I mean they get into a few things at the end of the book that are more limitations, but true curses. They just pile it on. The blessing that comes to you is the lack of these curses.
Yeah, when we read about blessings, they're not usually as specific as this, unless it has to do with like crops increasing. That's a little more specific, but you're right. Blessings are almost passive things that we tend to take for granted, and that was what I'd mostly planned for, is us taking things for granted. But yes, you have something to say.
I had a sister and a brother. So when my brother and I would get into fights, Dad would line us up and make us hug each other. Whenever you hate your brother, you you do not want to hug him.
What did you learn from that?
I will say one for an adult me, and that was I tend to read fast when I'm looking at emails and just assume things. And I've been called out several times at work, and it's not what it said at all. Like, what are you doing? You're completely saying the opposite of what we said in the email. And so that's been severely embarrassing and taught me to slow down and read carefully.
Yes. I did that the other day. Someone sent me a text about singing songs of a certain type. They said stillness, and I read it as silliness. So I wrote them back a paragraph about how there's not really silliness-themed songs in these songbooks. And about an hour later, he just texted back, stillness. I was like,
And you texted back, dyslexia.
yeah, I am dyslexic. But I can take a minute to read something, and that's fine. Behind you. Behind you, Craig.
More emphasis on the number of sins, just to make the point that, sinning is the gravity of sin. And so that's why there's more emphasis on sin, because of how grave it is.
Do you think we could ever be exhaustive with our lists of sin?
Nope. We're humans.
That's true. Anyone else want to share someone that had to learn the hard way?
A group of us neighborhood kids decided we were going to walk down to the train trestle and walk across the train trestle. And the train trestle is there's water under there and a kid can't swim, me. And one little kid we sent back
we didn't let him go. We were being mean, and we didn't let him go with us. So he told on us. And the lady that used to babysit me called my mother, which was at work. And by the time we got back, that was the worst whipping I ever got. Because, and I guess the blessing was the train didn't come and I didn't fall in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
This is one that I did not count on, but when my son was probably in 6th or 7th grade, a neighbor kid used to kind of bully him and come over. Well, my son was bigger than him, so I never understood it, and I'm not a passive person, so I didn't want him to be. So the kid was playing basketball, and he left to go home, and he took my son's ball. And Steven said, "He took my ball," and I said, "Go hit him." So he did, and my son is incredibly strong. And that, he told me later, he said, "I was a bully for a couple of years because of that." So you never know what you're breeding.
You created a monster. When we look at these curses, it can seem like, especially right out the gate, it seems like we're basically getting an inverse of a blessing. But one thing I want us to note as we read is that there's actually a pattern that happens here, starting in verse 20. So follow along with me. I'm going to be sort of reading select verses. So I'm going to be in verse 20, 25, 32, 47, and then 58 to show you a pattern. But pay attention. The Lord will send curses on you. The Lord will send on you curses, confusion, and frustration in all that you undertake to do until you are destroyed and perish quickly on account of the evil of your deeds, because you have forsaken me. 25. The Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out in the way against them and flee 7 ways before them. Pretty much the inverse of what we read in the first section. Verse 32. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, while your eyes look on and fail with longing for them all day long. You shall be helpless. 47. Because you did not serve the Lord your God with joyfulness and gladness in your heart, because of the abundance of all things, therefore you shall serve your enemies, whom the Lord will send against you in hunger and thirst and nakedness and lacking everything. And he will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. And then 58 through 59. If you are not careful to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that you may fear that this glorious and awesome name, the Lord your God, then the Lord will bring on you and your offspring extraordinary afflictions, afflictions severe and lasting, and sickness grievous and lasting. So it starts off with you. You will be confused. You will have this curse in all the things that you do. Where does it extend to by the end of this? It goes on from you, right? It goes past you. So whenever we hear things like, well, it's not hurting anybody, sometimes those things passively do hurt people when we're doing something wrong. Oh, yes, absolutely. They almost saw it as a checklist. But I think, like as it was said, they are people, right? And the more people you have, the more chance of failure, technically. So, as a nation, you can see it happen, across many people. What are some things that stick out to you in these verses about the progression of it getting worse from personal to many other people? Yes.
Things that happen in today's, in this day and age, natural disasters, accidents, bad health issues, would you say those are curses, or would you say those are acts of nature, things that happen that we don't necessarily plan? You know, because there's natural disasters all over the place.
Right.
And the United States has had its fill, but then individually, we just have bad things happen. Would you say, how do we know whether it's a curse or an accident or an act of nature?
I think there's several ways we can take that question. I think recently, you might be able to relate to this, right? You've gone, both of you and your husband went through something that was an accident, right? Things like that just happen. I don't know if I would consider every time a car crashes, someone is getting the comeuppance. It all really is about perspective. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that happen because they're a consequence of something worse or something that someone has done. And I think it's really hard to answer that with a straightforward answer, but if I were to give one, I would say it's really a matter of perspective and also how you interpret sin coming into the world. Could there have been weather patterns in Eden?
Yeah, I almost feel like under the New Testament covenant that the script gets flipped, right? If we look at Deuteronomy from the perspective of if you follow the law, these curses don't happen. It always seems under the New Testament covenant, don't follow the law and you won't receive blessings. You know, as opposed to all of these curses, right? Because the old law, for the most part, fell away,
Right.
And no longer had application. Along with what by the time Jesus comes, the Jewish leadership, right, has added several hundred laws as a guard band against breaking these laws. Right? They just kept setting up rules and new rules, and just to avoid that slippery slope.
Right.
Now we have grace and mercy at play, and it seems that rather than curses, it winds up being a limitation on blessings. And Kevin's itching ears.
I just had a question, and talking about curses, but do you think sometimes bad things happen because your faith is being tested, or like something bad? Are you going to stay strong in your faith versus? Do you think it's a test sometimes, and not necessarily a curse?
Right. Well, it's who's doing the testing or tempting in that case, right?
Yeah.
God is like a really good coach. I always like the imagery of a coach. They put you through lots of tests, but at the end of the day, they always want you to succeed, right? They give you all the tools, they give you all the training for you to succeed. Satan, on the other hand, puts you through something similar, but he's not looking for your success. He wants you to fail. You were first.
Kind of to what Craig was saying is like, so in the Old Testament, it was a do this or get punished. I feel like with the New Testament coming in, it's a we do it because we've been given so much. And so it's a new perspective on the rules and laws. It's that we do follow those still, but it's because of the gift we've been given and how much we owe to Jesus for his love for us. It's it's not we're going to do this so we don't get. It's we do this because we've been so loved and we're going to bless others too.
Right. A good example would be the tithing right? Where there was a set number that you were supposed to give when the time came to it. And then in the New Testament, what does it say about this number? There's no number. It's giving out of your own will, out of how your gladness of your heart. So what we measure things by becomes null. So,
When this question comes up, particularly in terms of what we call natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, and so on, I'm always reminded of Romans 8th chapter, beginning with the 18th verse, which indicates that the whole universe, all of existence, is broken because of sin, but that there's something awaiting us, and so there's a perspective that we have even in light of all this. So Paul says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain freedom of the glory of the children of God." So it seems to me there's this perspective, hey, we're sharing all of this with the whole creation, and that it's the whole creation that is longing to be restored. And I think a little later on it talks about how we're in the pangs of childbirth,
right.
as it is. And so from a Christian perspective,
Romans 8. Romans 8, 18.
So from a Christian perspective, we know what the end is, and the whole creation is going to be restored. Sometimes I think we think, well, we're just going to receive a new body. But no, it's the whole creation that is going to be restored, and we'll have a new heaven and a new earth.
Absolutely. No, it's one of those things where we have the hope that we have in Christ. Is something we should always keep while we read verses like these, right? Because we can get really overwhelmed with the curse idea, especially when it goes from 15 to 68 verses, right? Comparatively to 1 to 14 of blessings. But the hope that we have in Christ in this world full of suffering is really what helps us persist. But let's go back to the text, and we'll keep this idea of the progression of things sort of get worse as we read. Can I get a reader from 20 to 24?
29 verse 20?
28 verses
Or
20
28.
to 24.
Yeah. The Lord will send on you curses, confusion, and frustration in all that you undertake to do, until you are destroyed and perish quickly on account of the evil of your deeds, because you have forsaken me. The Lord will make the pestilence stick to you until he has consumed you off the land that you are entering to take possession of it. The Lord will strike you with wasting disease and with fever, inflammation and fiery heat, and with drought and with blight and with mildew. They shall pursue you until you perish. And the heavens over your head shall be bronze, and the earth under you shall be iron. The Lord will make the rain of your land powder. From heaven dust shall come down on you until you are destroyed.
Let's take another chunk, 25 through 35.
Jehovah will cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and shalt flee 7 ways before them. And thou shalt be tossed to and fro among all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy dead body shall be food unto all birds of the heavens, and unto the beasts of the earth, and there shall be none to frighten them away. Jehovah will smite thee with the boil of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scurvy, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. Jehovah will smite thee with madness and with blindness and with astonishment of heart, and thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in the darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and robbed alway, and there shall be none to save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not use the fruit thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thee, and thou shalt have none to save thee. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day. And there shall be naught in the power of thy hand. The fruit of thy ground and all the labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. Jehovah will smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore boil, whereof thou canst not be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the crown of thy head. If that doesn't cure you of one of this,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, not only that, but he's bringing forth the plagues that they've escaped from. And then he's undoing creation where now the birds and the animals get to eat you and they take care of you that way. And all your belongings and any sort of power that you have is gone. When we read stuff like this, it is really important to remember that we are looking for God's character in the things that he says. What does this tell you about God's character in relation to sin?
You know, we talk about God and love, but God is also wrath. And he's saying that here. But see, the New Testament describes what hell is like. How many people pay attention? We want to know, we want to think God is going to love all of us. But he is a justice God, so he can't accept you unless you accept his son.
There's still wrath and punishment in this. The whole section we just read was also the very personal part, where it's like you and your family, your things. So again, I'll ask the question, what does this reveal about God's nature in relation to sin?
He won't tolerate rebellion. And I think, in contrast, he's trying to show him what will happen, and he's trying to warn him. He doesn't want it to happen to him. And he's trying to show them the reason they have the wonderful life that he's providing with them is because he's blessing them.
Do you have an answer?
Well, we've been studying Deuteronomy. Can't say that word. We find that there's instructions all along the way, and there's things that he tells us that we shouldn't do, and in that what will happen if we do those things, or we will enjoy blessings if we are obedient. And he talks about his love there, but we find in, let me get back to it here. Where'd it go? Sorry, I lost my place. We find we know this is the New Testament we're talking about now, but we find in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, God is faithful, who will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But with every temptation, he will also provide a way out of that so that you can endure it. So because we have free will, even back then they had free will, so they made a a personal decision whether to obey or not. But if you look at all the things that, the warnings that they're getting and the things that the scripture's laying out through those time frames, they were using their free will to be disobedient. And if they're going to be disobedient, then this is what's going to happen to you. I think they cause a lot of that to happen to themselves, as do people today. But there's a way to get out of it by being obedient.
Next question is, what would it say about God if he didn't give them this whole section of 15 to 68?
That he was a softie, tolerant, indulgent God, right? Promises all the blessings, but no threat of curses.
Let's keep digging. What else? What else does this? What would it say if we just didn't have this section? If God didn't give them a warning?
I guess one thing it reminds me of is maybe a very permissive parent who just allows the child to go, and there's no discipline, and so the child ends up not having a quality of life. So in a sense, these curses and these warnings actually show his love in terms of he's creating a people that he started in Egypt, way back in Egypt, and bringing them together. A people that can enjoy the wonderful blessings that and the wonderful society that will be existent if they follow God's promptings and rules, and things will be chaos if they don't, and if he says nothing, it'll be chaos.
Yeah. No, that's the good part about parents that explain things that will happen, right? You don't just watch your kid go up to the stove. You teach them good stove ethics, right? You teach them good ways to be about the house. Don't touch this, or be careful with this, don't run with that. And you don't just let them do anything and learn everything the hard way. This is actually good that he's warning them. It's like, hey, just letting you know what you're in for if you disobey. These are the things that will happen. It's loving and it's careful of him. There are several people. I don't know if they.
I was just going to say, I think it reminds me of, there's consequences to your actions, right? I reflect back when I was a kid and my dad, saying, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, son, right? I mean, to me, it's very similar to that, right? There's consequences to the actions. And
I was just going to say it provides structure so that we know how to live without excuse, and that it eliminates the chaos that would happen without structure. So it gives us the guidelines to live within and eliminates any excuse for, I didn't know, or chaos.
One more over here.
I think about, he's putting guardrails up, he's, giving us some guidelines and things that we should do, shouldn't do. But the more I think about it, before they came out of bondage, I'm just trying to imagine what the behaviors were of these people before they had the law. And then even before that, before the flood, he destroyed the world because it was nothing but sin. So if it was bad during this period of time where he's telling them, don't do this, don't do that, what was it like during the time in captivity? What was it like before the flood? It must have been, you can't even talk about it, it was so bad.
Probably can't, it's hard to imagine. Such lawlessness.
The other thing I think it does is it really calls on the people to really think hard, because it's like you were saying, not just them. And so, you tell me not to do something, I might do it, but if you say, and then your children are going to be hurt, I'm going to think way harder about that. And so I think he's being very descriptive so that they have the knowledge that this isn't just about you, it's going to hurt everyone if you do these things.
But before we move on, I don't want this to be, to look like obey God and so you don't get punished, right? The reason isn't to avoid punishment. The reason is to have relationship with him, right? You said it should come out of this desire to be with God. And so when we belong to God, when we are a part of his people, we should look a certain way, we should act a certain way, live a certain way. When we put on Christ, we die to our own selves. That old person is gone. And we are supposed to be a new person in Christ. And so you belong to him, so live like his people, right? Respect that identity. Let's keep reading 36 through 44.
The Lord will bring you and your king whom you set over you to a nation that neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods of wood and stone. And you shall become a horror, a proverb, and a byword among all the peoples where the Lord will lead you away. You shall carry much seed into the field, and shall gather in little, for the locust shall consume it. You shall plant vineyards and dress them, but you shall neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. You shall have olive trees throughout all your territory, but you shall not anoint yourself with the oil, for your olive shall drop off. You shall father sons and daughters, but they shall not be yours, for they shall go into captivity. The cricket shall possess all your trees and the fruit of your ground. The sojourner who is among you shall rise higher and higher above you, and you shall come down lower and lower. He shall lend to you, and you shall not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall be the tail.
This is one thing I sort of want to touch on. What is the head and tail imagery? What does that mean? When God tells them in the first part, you will be the head and they will be the tail. What does that mean? Right, you are being dragged along, right? If we picture a snake or something, right? And if you're at the head, then you're leading. You're an example. You're in control. I know there's a lot of people on Facebook that post verses 43 and 44 as immigrants bad, and we have earned it through our how we have become as a country. But I think in context, we can see that it's actually more than that. It's not just immigrants bad. We have brought this on ourselves through our conduct. And we're not being the head. We're not acting like the head. We're acting like the tail in our actions. We're running out of time. Let's keep going to 45. If someone could read 45 through 51.
All these curses shall come upon you and pursue you and overtake you till you are destroyed. Because you did not obey the voice of the Lord your God to keep his commandments and his statutes that he commanded you. They shall be a sign and a wonder against you and your offspring forever. Because you did not serve the Lord your God with joyfulness and gladness of your heart, because of the abundance of all these things, therefore you shall serve your enemies, whom the Lord will send against you, in hunger and thirst and in nakedness, and lacking everything. And he will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. The Lord will bring a nation against you from far away, from the end of the earth, swooping down like an eagle, a nation whose whose language, you do not understand, a hard-faced nation who shall not respect the old or show mercy to the young. It shall eat the offspring of your cattle and the fruit of your ground until you are destroyed. It also shall not leave your grain, wine, or oil, the increase in your herds or your young of your flock until they have caused you to perish.
Let's get 52 to 57.
They shall besiege you in all your towns until your high and fortified walls in which you trusted come down throughout all the land. And they shall besiege you in all your towns throughout all your land, which the Lord your God has given you. And you shall eat the fruit of your womb, the flesh of your sons and daughters, whom the Lord your God has given you, in the siege and in the distress with which your enemies shall distress you. The man who is the most tender and refined among you will begrudge your food to his brothers, to the wife of his embraces, and to the last of the children whom he has left, so that he will not give to any of them any of the flesh of his children. Really? Flesh of his children whom he has eaten, because he has nothing else left, and in the siege and in the distress with which your enemies shall distress you in all your towns, the most tender and refined woman among you, who would not venture to set the sole of her feet on the ground because she is so delicate and tender, will begrudge to the husband she embraces, to her son and to her daughter. Was that, go on?
Keep going. 57 too.
Her afterbirth that comes out from between her feet and her children whom she bears, because lacking everything she will eat them secretly in the siege and in the distress with which your enemies shall distress you in your towns.
Pretty graphic.
Yeah.
I think we all have the capability to be terrible people, right? I'm sure there's stories that we would never share about being terrible people to others. But this is even more than that, right? This is desperation. When we talked about what does hell look like, right? And not being afraid of hell because you don't really have an idea of it. Reading something like this can really steer you straight. You don't even have to go so far as to think of hell when you have something like this on earth. Right? I don't ever want this to happen. But it's terrible. But it's also a warning, right? Where God's warning, he doesn't want this to happen, right? Let's remember that he doesn't want these things to happen. He's letting them know where they will end up if they choose. Right. Can someone finish this out? 2 more paragraphs. So starting at 58.
If you do not, carefully observe all these words of this law that are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and awesome name, the Lord your God, then the Lord will bring upon you and your descendants extraordinary plagues, great and prolonged plagues, and serious and prolonged sicknesses. Moreover, he will bring back on you on you all the diseases of Egypt, of which you were afraid, and they shall cling to you. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in this book of law will the Lord bring upon you until you are destroyed. You shall be left few in number, whereas you were as the stars of heaven in multitudes, because you would not obey the voice of Lord your God. And it shall be that just as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good and multiply you, the Lord will rejoice over you and destroy you and bring you to nothing, and you shall be plucked from off the land which you go to possess. Then the Lord will scatter you among the people from one end of the earth to the other, and there you shall serve other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood or stone. Among those nations you shall find no rest, nor shall the sole of your foot have resting place, but there the Lord will give you a trembling heart, failing eyes, and extinguish of souls. Your life shall hang in doubt before you. You shall fear the day and night, and have no assurance of life. In the morning you shall say, oh, that it were evening, and as evening you shall say, oh, that it were morning, because of the fear which terrifies your heart, and because of the sight of which your eyes see. And the Lord will take you back to Egypt in ships, and by way of which I say to you, you shall never see it again, and there you shall be offered for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you.
Yeah, going from God's chosen people, right? Chosen by God himself, ransomed basically out of Egypt, to no one will want you. Stamping out through integration, right? Through idolatry, through interbreeding, through everything, they would not exist as a people anymore. And that's what they were asking for at the beginning of their freedom. Let's just go back to Egypt. This is what would have happened. They would have been sold back into slavery. They'd have no identity. Behind you. Let's close this out with these two comments, and then we'll pray.
The thought came to my mind, it almost sounds like this is total destruction of them as a people and them as a nation. And yet, the promise that God made to Abraham is still going to stand. So, maybe in reading through this, I don't know whether any of their people had an inkling of this, that if this comes about, that the promise of Abraham is still going to stand. But from a New Testament lens, at least we can look at all of this and know that there's going to be a remnant, and that God's going to be faithful to that promise.
Absolutely. Bonnie, how do you? Last comment?
Say real quick, we talked about this briefly last week, and it's when it says, but no one will buy you, so no one will want you, but more importantly, there will be nobody to protect you. You're completely on your own. So it just adds another element of terror, really.
Yeah.
God's not there.
Scary stuff. This is definitely an invitation to take God seriously in our lives, as well as just remembering that He is just, right? So, all right, let's pray. Lord, we thank you so much for this day you've given us, and we thank you for this time to be together. Lord, help us to pass on the knowledge that we have and the hope that we have to other people, so that they may be saved, so that any of the hardship that we read about today, any of the destruction that was talked about, we can help people avoid, and we can do it out of love and in a loving way. Lord, help us to be your light and to be your people, and to rejoice in the blessings and to stay away from the curses and the things that bring on curses. Lord, we ask these things in your Son's name. Amen.